I still remember that day, a normal day until I checked my phone and glanced through the news. So what was it? What was this news? Lead vocalist of Linkin Park, Chester Bennington, was found dead. Apparently a case of suicide due to depression. It had happened before, and it had happened again, and again, and again. I usually have a standard playlist of uplifting songs for my morning routine, but that day, I made an exception. I played Linkin Park after a long time, and then I played it again and again for subsequent months, grieving for Chester. But why do I grieve? I don't know this somebody. I don't know a somebody who knows this somebody. I don't even know a somebody who knows a somebody who knows this somebody. 7 seas apart, never had a chance of meeting. So the question is, why do I grieve? Why do we grieve?
There's a reason why all of us love One More Light, and that's because it makes you want to fucking cry. That's why that song is great.
Movies are one of the most richest form of art. Motion pictures engaging at oral as well as visual level. A proper mise-en-scene lets us slide comfortably into the story. Movies directly impact 3 categories in a cathartic way. First category is within the movie. The characters, protagonist, antagonist, deuteragonist, the ones around whom the story is woven. They go through a journey, redemption, sorrow, and upheaval of emotions. Second is the artist enacting these roles, whom we call actors. Now they don't necessarily have to have experienced the exact pain that the character goes through in the movie, but they emote it based on their own experience, peripheral or direct. They bring these experiences into the movie and enrich it. Sometimes they take it too far, like method acting. Often they intend to break down the role, but getting too attached and the role breaks them down, bringing back the old haunting memories, the painful memories. Now you, my audience, you are the third category. How often have you found yourself sobbing like a baby in the middle of a movie? A tragic movie evokes an emotion of a painful past, bringing the repressed feelings on the surface. Something buried long back but not forgotten, not forgiven. Don't be embarrassed if you ever sobbed while watching a movie. It's called movie for a reason, cause it moves us. Move we, right? This in short is catharsis, first mentioned by Aristotle in his literary work Poetics, illustrating the effects of tragedy in a theatrical drama on the mind of a spectator as an emotional release. Note that it's not just the movies or plays that can provide the cathartic release, but a song, a painting, or any form of art that strikes the chord. This is valid for the audience as well as the artist. If art is a conduit for cathartic release, artists provide that conduit. So did you get it? Did you get the answer to why do we grieve? Why do we grieve at the demise of such artists?
We don't care what you look like. We don't care where you come from. We don't care what you believe in. We love every single one of you out there. And nothing will ever change that.
When we relate to the suffering of the artist as our own, we connect at an esoteric level. We like them and we feel like we are like them. One finds it unfair when life snatches away the voice that brought one out of depression. It is even more depressing when the reason of their death is depression itself. The voice that saved millions could not save themselves. It's like, who cares for the caretaker? Who provides the cathartic release to the artist who provides the cathartic release?
There was a moment he moved forward and I did kind of move towards him like, nope, you go, I go.
To try and comfort the man, Christina recited a song lyric from one of her favorite bands.
It's a Linkin Park song. Who cares if one more light goes out in a sky of a billion stars? Like, I do. One person cares.
Who cares if one more light goes out? Well, I do.
And I don't know if it clicked with him, but he just cried.
In Talmud, there is a quotation: "Whoever saves one life saves the world entire." When the work of an artist has given hope to millions and such an artist dies hopeless, we are helpless. That's why we grieve. Now that you know, why do we grieve at the demise of these artists? The question is, number of artists has increased. Art forms have increased. So have the cases of depression and suicide. Why? There is a deluge of art to consume. Is the quality of art degrading? Are they not providing enough of cathartic release, or have we become numb? Is there a reservoir of sorrow that keeps pumping up grief for ad infinitum, or is it something else?
I don't know if anybody out there can relate, but like, I have a hard time with life. Sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes it's great, but a lot of times for me, it's really hard.
For as far as we can remember, purpose of art has always been to communicate. Catharsis may or may not be its intended goal. For as far as we can remember, civilizations have been built on communications. Communication itself is an art, perhaps the greatest of all arts. How well someone communicates with you defines their connection with you. How well you communicate with yourself defines your connection with yourself. How healthy your relationship with yourself is. We confide in people with whom we can communicate without a fear of judgment. We pour our heart out. Could be that we share a similar sorrow, and there is no bond forged stronger than in sorrow of two souls akin. That is why we feel a connection with great artists who can communicate to us through their art, similar to a friend or family in whom we confide, with whom we communicate with no filter. This act of communicating, opening up, getting off your chest itself is cathartic. If it is done properly, then there would be no need of an external cathartic agent. If you have nothing built up within you that needs to be purged, there is no need of catharsis. But then the qualifier is if. So what has gone wrong? Early humans lived in tribes, and the early form of communication were limited to face-to-face verbal and non-verbal cues. We were always on the move as foragers, a hunter or a gatherer, and the concept of owning a property had not been conceived yet. Lie down and gaze into the sky. Lie down and gaze into each other's eye. Lie down, my friend, and try. Even if you did, you could not lie. There was not much to hide from anyone, as there was no concept of privacy. Though our mind seems like a safe sanctuary for our thoughts, but given there were not enough distractions then, and substantial amount of time at one's disposal to interact, to communicate, it was just a matter of time before the signs of anguish were sensed and ameliorated. It was imminent to have all their hunting kin at the top of their game, physically as well as mentally. Come 9500 BC, some 12,000 years ago, concept of settlement and dwelling comes into play. Seeds of Neolithic crops are sown, and with that seeds of owning a property are sown. The number of settlements kept increasing. Settlers kept increasing. New trades developed. New vocations developed, and overall a close-knit commune shrunk based on these filters. Along emerged walls around the town as fortification. Walls within the town designating private property. In short, concept of private property had started to bloom. Then came the Industrial Revolution with abundant supply of blue-collar jobs. Another vocation where you were one of the individuals, just another cog in the wheel, just another brick in the wall. Low-stake work, unlike hunting mentioned earlier, where you had to be at the top of your game, where you were a valuable member of the tribe, stopped existing. Then came the Victorian era, which marked a shift toward privacy that had been slowly taking place over the past few centuries. Sleep was no more a communal activity, rather an improper and immoral act, and this thought process trickled down to the lower classes. The beginning of walls within the walls within the walls, with home bisected into realm of individual bedrooms, for each family member took place in the Victorian era. This was beginning of privacy, beginning of a secluded sanatorium. Please note that the privacy I am referring to has nothing to do with privacy as a constitutional right. Article 12 of the 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The privacy here has more to do with the societal walls built over time and alienation as an unintended consequence of it. In the last chapter, I focused on how sleep was no more a communal activity. Why am I so hell-bent on sleep? The reason is that depression and suicide are strongly correlated and also interlinked to sleep, insomnia being one of the big risk factors. Just by observing someone sleep or not sleep, one can sense the signs of anguish, if any, and take steps to remediate it. Statistically, suicide rate per hour rises after midnight, peaking at 16% between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. The bottom line is that once left to one's own device, mind can slowly slide from a safe sanctuary to a secluded sanatorium, losing its sanity. Within the confines of one's private space, it becomes fairly easy to mask one's emotions and feelings. More than 80% of suicide cases happen in lieu of probing eyes of people who can prevent it. That is, they don't happen publicly, thus making it most private of acts. Those who attempt suicide decide to sever their bond with this world permanently. In their mind, in their secluded sanatorium, they have already broken all the bonds, all the connections. Now the question is, how can it be possible when the world has never been this connected? Or is it that it's not disconnected, rather disconnected?
This place right here, this skull between my ears, it's crazy in here. This is a bad place for me to be by myself. When I'm in that, like, my whole life gets thrown off. Like, if I'm in there, like, I don't say nice things to myself. Like, there's another Chester in there that's like, wants to take me down.
Secluded sanatorium is not just about the physical walls, but also the digital wheels. Technology has changed the face of communication. It has never been this easier to connect to the world. Or is it? Face-to-face communication has been replaced with digital forms of communication. We all have a little device as our mechanical pet all the time in our hands. Verbal communication has moved to chats. A close-knit commune has moved to digital groups. A group that can support hundreds of people to tons of people. Multiple video chat that can support tens of people. Seems like there are a number of people around you. But these are just numbers, just heads. You can count them, but you can't count on them. Mask your emotions within the confines of your physical wall. Mask it some more beneath the confines of digital wheel. Innocuous-looking emojis seem to have hijacked the essence of communication. Emojis, in my opinion, though seemingly expressive, are one of the best ways to mask one's emotion. So how are you? Happy? Delighted? Excited? Jubilant? Peaceful? Blissful? We have got so used to the walls, physical and digital, that we are talking to the walls. And that's the irony. Even when you are alone at midnight, technology gives you access to the entire world and people, but the communication is broken. There is no human touch. Everyone is just running one chat after another chat, one group after another group, one social networking site after another social networking site. There is no breather. We are chasing numbers. We are chasing a dystopian utopia.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I remembered the line from the end scripture, the Bhagavad Gita, Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
75 years ago, nuclear physicist Robert Oppenheimer detonated first ever nuclear device, an implosion-type bomb. Oppenheimer was weighed down by the guilt of what he had achieved and regretted it, as apparent from his speech. These weapons of mass destruction were used 1 month later at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Apparently, this was the only time they were used in a war. Since then, there has not been any further usage of nuclear weapons in war. They seem to have deterred the states from using them as per the deterrence theory, and possibly as a consequence of mutually assured destruction. I hope the status quo is maintained even though there always is hanging the sword of Damocles. My purpose of bringing this example is to pit the weapon of mass destruction against depression. While depression is cited as a silent killer, could it be possible that it attains an astronomical proportion to be deemed as a weapon of mass destruction? The way technology has been progressing, it would not be far-fetched to say that by the end of this century, we would have attained immortality. But what if people lose their will to live? What if people are so disillusioned with life that in that one snap of a moment, they just don't want to exist, throwing themselves off into deep abyss like a pack of lemmings? Then what use will immortality be? What use will all this progress be? If I were to believe the stats provided by useless and unreliable WHO, so-called who cares, the number of suicide per unit time has doubled in the last 4 years. From 1 suicide every 40 seconds, it is estimated to increase to 1 suicide every 20 seconds in 2020. And this is without considering the current situation for which, who is to blame? Asian financial crisis of 1997 and global financial crisis of 2008 both resulted in increased suicidal rates in the following year in their respective regions. Given that the current situation has resulted not just in a financial contagion, but also a social contagion, it's a double whammy. While social isolation peaks, quality of communication troughs. The Great Depression of 2020s is different and graver from the Great Depression of 1930s. This could perhaps be the greatest depression in the last 100 years. I might sound like a nihilist and a pessimist or maybe cynical, but it is what it is.
Is it just me, or is it getting crazier out there?
However, let's be optimistic about the situation. If we can get through this, we can get through anything. Some realities. Currently gasping for a vaccine, immortality certainly is far-fetched. Technology is not bad, the usage is. Though technology might have changed the way we communicate, but communication need not be changed. Wherever you are, however you are, my only advice would be to communicate with people who care about you. Communicate to people whom you care about. But above all, communicate with yourself. Depression is a complicated subject and I wanted to cover a multitude of topics around it. Perhaps I'll cover some of it in future episodes. And you know what this sticker is, don't you? Comment below what this is, and share, and subscribe. That would be cathartic for me. Or you can comment what your way of catharsis is. Just comment something. I thank you for coming this far and watching this video till the end, but the most important thing is still unsaid. Time to stop this sticker. I still remember that day. A normal day until I checked my phone and glanced through the news. So what was it? What was this news? We had achieved a utopia. Or did we?